The land had forgotten mercy long before Eli Turner was born. Dust ruled the valley like a cruel god, swallowing crops, cracking earth, and breaking men one season at a time. Eli's ranch sat at the edge of that forgotten land, a patch of stubborn life clinging to survival between scorched hills and a winding trail the Apache warriors had used for generations. He was poor, not the romantic kind of poor sung about in old ballads, but the real kind that scraped the soul raw. His boots were mended more times than he could count. His hat had lost its shape years ago, and the ranch house leaned like an old man who refused to lie down and die. Yet every morning Eli rose before the sun, whispered a quiet prayer, and worked the land as if faith alone could hold it together. The war had been going on so long that no one remembered how it started, only that it never stopped. Settlers spoke of Apache raids in hushed voices. Apache elders spoke of stolen land and broken treaties around sacred fires. Blood answered blood, fear fed fear, and in between stood men like Eli, too poor to flee, too stubborn to hate, and too tired to fight. That morning the air felt wrong. Birds were silent. Even the wind hesitated. Eli felt it in his bones as he hauled water from the well, the bucket heavy and precious. Water was life here, worth more than gold. He wiped sweat from his brow when he saw them. 5 Apache warriors emerged from the ridge, like spirits cut from shadow. Painted faces, long hair braided with feathers, rifles slung low. They moved with the quiet confidence of men who knew the land better than their own breath. Eli's heart slammed against his ribs. Every story he'd ever heard screamed one command, run. But he didn't. The warriors stopped 20 paces away. Their leader stepped forward, tall, scarred, eyes sharp as flint. This was Dakota, a name whispered with fear among settlers. Eli knew the stories. Farms burned, men killed, no mercy given. Dakota studied Eli the way a wolf studies a lone deer, not hungry, but cautious. Eli's hand trembled on the bucket rope. He knew what they saw, a defenseless rancher, alone, easy prey. The well behind him was exposed. His rifle lay inside the house. He swallowed hard, his mouth dry despite the water at his feet. Dakota spoke first, his voice low and controlled. "Why do you stand?" Eli didn't know why he answered truthfully. "Because running won't save me." A murmur passed through the warriors. Dakota's eyes narrowed. "You know who we are?" "Yes," Eli said. "And I know you're thirsty." Silence fell heavy as the sun. Eli slowly, deliberately lifted the bucket and dipped a tin cup into the water. Every instinct screamed that this was madness. Offering water to enemies during wartime was more than foolish. It was unthinkable. Water meant survival. To share it was to weaken yourself. Eli stepped forward and held out the cup with both hands. "For whoever needs it," he said. One warrior raised his rifle halfway. Another cursed under his breath. Dakota didn't move. His gaze flicked from the cup to Eli's eyes, searching for deception, for fear, for a trap. There was none, only exhaustion, only humanity. "You would give water to those who may kill you?" Dakota asked. Eli's voice cracked, but he didn't look away. "I'd rather die a man than live as another reason this land bleeds." The words struck deeper than any bullet. Dakota took the cup. Time seemed to stop. The other warriors stiffened, ready to react. Dakota drank slowly, deliberately, never breaking eye contact with Eli. When he finished, he handed the cup back, empty. "No settler has ever done this," Dakota said quietly. Eli shrugged. "Then maybe it's time someone did." Something shifted then, not in the valley, but in the air between them. The warriors relaxed, just slightly. Dakota turned and spoke to them in Apache, his voice firm. One by one they approached, drank, and stepped back. No weapons were raised, no threats spoken. When the last man finished, Dakota faced Eli again. "Today," he said, "you live because you showed respect." Eli shook his head. "I didn't do it to live." Dakota's eyes softened, just a fraction. "That," he said, "is why this day will be remembered." The warriors melted back into the hills as silently as they had arrived. Eli stood alone, heart pounding, the empty bucket at his feet. He didn't know it yet, but that simple act, a cup of water, offered without hate, had crossed a line no weapon ever could. By sunset, Whispers spread across the land. An Apache war party sped a rancher. No blood spilled, no fire lit. Elders spoke. Scouts listened. And far away, men who lived by the gun began to question something they had never dared to before. That night, Eli sat on his porch, staring at the stars, unaware that his small, poor ranch had just become the center of a turning tide. And somewhere in the darkness, Dakota stared at the same sky, wondering if war, after generations of pain, had finally met its match in a single, fearless act of kindness. The desert did not change overnight, but something inside it had begun to stir. In the days following the meeting at the well, the land felt as if it were holding its breath. Eli Turner went on with his life, the only way he knew how, repairing broken fences, rationing grain, pulling water from the stubborn earth. But everywhere he went, he felt unseen eyes. Word traveled faster than horses ever could. Settlers whispered his name with disbelief, some calling him brave, others calling him a fool who had simply not yet paid the price for his kindness. "You don't feed wolves and expect peace," one man spat at him in town. Eli said nothing. He had not offered water to change minds. He had done it because something deep inside him refused to let hatred finish what drought and war had started. Among the Apache, the ripples ran even deeper. Dakota faced the council fire with the weight of generations pressing on his shoulders. Elders questioned him sharply. Why spare a settler? Why accept water from enemy hands? Why return without blood? Dakota listened in silence, then spoke of the rancher's eyes, of the way the cup was offered without shaking away, of how no fear hid behind that gesture. "He did not see us as beasts," Dakota said. "He saw us as men." Some scoffed, reminding him of burned villages and broken treaties. Others fell quiet, remembering times when mercy had once existed before rifles and borders. That night, the council did not decide for peace, but for the first time, they decided not to decide for more blood. The turning point came weeks later, when a U.S. patrol rode hard into Apache territory, guns blazing, mistaking movement for threat. Shots echoed through the canyons. A young Apache boy was wounded, his blood soaking into the same soil Eli had watered with kindness. Dakota's warriors were ready to retaliate. The old rules demanded it. Blood for blood, fire for fire. Yet as Dakota lifted his rifle, his mind returned to the rancher standing alone, offering water when every reason told him not to. Dakota lowered the weapon. Instead of attacking, Dakota did something unthinkable. He rode to Eli's ranch. When Dakota appeared at the fence alone, unarmed, Eli nearly dropped the hammer he was holding. For a long moment, neither man spoke. Then Dakota dismounted and placed a small bundle at Eli's feet. Inside were herbs and cloth, Apache medicine used for healing wounds. "A boy was hurt," Dakota said. "This will help him live. I bring it so you know what your choice created." Eli looked at the bundle, then at Dakota. "I never meant to start something," he said quietly. "You didn't," Dakota replied. "You ended something." From that day forward, violence slowed, not because treaties were signed or flags raised, but because men began to hesitate. Apache scouts warned ranchers before patrols passed through. Settlers stopped firing at every shadow. There were still clashes, still anger, still pain, but the war no longer moved like an unstoppable storm. It stumbled, it questioned itself. Years later, elders would say the war did not end with a battle, but with thirst, with a poor rancher who had almost nothing, yet gave away the one thing everyone feared to lose. Eli never became rich. His ranch never grew large, but travelers spoke of a place where enemies once drank from the same well, and children, Apache and settler, alike, played without knowing the taste of hatred their fathers had known too well. On the day Eli died, Dakota stood at a distance among the mourners, unseen by most. He placed a cup of water on the fresh earth and whispered words no war had ever taught him. The land listened, and for the first time in a long, long while it rested.